Can Josh Hart be the starting small forward for the Portland Trail Blazers, or will that role go to someone else? What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another player preview. This is the 9th installment in this series. If you've missed any of the previous videos, there's a playlist link in the description box below, and let's talk Josh Hart. Last season, Josh Hart played for both the New Orleans Pelicans and the Portland Trail Blazers, as he ended up getting traded around the NBA trade deadline for CJ McCollum. During his time in Portland, Hart was extremely solid, as in 13 games, he averaged almost 20 points per game, 5.5 rebounds, 4.3 assists, on 61% from 2 and 37% from 3, he had a true shooting percentage of 62% in a Blazer uniform. Hart looked like a borderline star last year for the Blazers, but where his value lies is him being a do-it-all role player that can facilitate, play make, create off the dribble, attack the rim strong, hit some threes, as well as play on the defensive end. Josh Hart can fill into any role, whether that be the starting small forward or a guy off the bench. Standing at 6'5", he's played a lot of forward in his career, and he plays bigger than he is, but he also has the skill set to maybe play point guard in a pinch. Now let's take a look at his offensive game and how it might fit into the Blazers' rotation and schemes and lineup this next season. It's hard to take away much from the 13-game sample where Josh Hart was playing next to Anthony Simons, but was basically the second shot creator on the floor. He probably won't get as high of a usage rate this season, but his statistical production was just extremely impressive. Small sample size, can't read too much into it, but he's been a quality scorer during his time in the league. Now, his career three-point percentage is 34.7%. The last 4 years of his career, though, he hasn't shot above that. He shot almost 40% his rookie year, but has been right around 33 to 34% in the 4 years since. I think this is a key thing for Josh Hart to fill in as a role player, is just being able to space the floor, especially if he's playing with the bench unit, who has some questionable shooters such as Justice Winslow and Gary Payton II in that lineup. I think Josh Hart is going to need to knock down threes. I will have a three-point goal later in this video. Last year when he played for Portland, he was hitting threes off the dribble and looks that I never expected him to shoot an efficient number on, and 37% is efficient. He shot 6.4 threes per game for the Blazers last year, which would be a career high if it was for the entire season. And I don't think Josh Hart should be one of those guys shooting a bunch of threes off the dribble, off screens, jacking up half his shots from behind the three-point arc. I think he's a little better going towards the rim and making plays that way. But just as long as he can be serviceable enough to be respected and space the floor, I think he'll be just fine. But the reason I really like him as a role player is because I think he can play and guard three positions on both sides of the ball. Portland doesn't really have a third string point guard right now. Anthony Simons and Damian Lillard are going to stagger. Anthony Simons is going to essentially be the backup point guard, but if either one misses some time, it's obvious the other one would start, but we don't know who would fill in at the backup point guard role. It could be Keon Johnson, but it also could be Josh Hart. He can handle the ball well enough, and averaged over 4 assists per game last year. His playmaking has really improved. We saw him throwing lobs, driving the lane, and making good kickout passes. His reads have gotten better, and if he starts, this could be a good third playmaker to have next to Damian Lillard and Anthony Simons. The Dame CJ backcourts didn't really have a forward that could make plays and pass the ball like Josh Hart, and I do expect Josh Hart to play some minutes with the starting lineup, so I think this will be nice as an outlet to relieve pressure should defenses try and load up on Dame and Ant. Also, having Jeremy Grant out there helps a lot for sure. But with the bench lineup playing next to a staggered Anthony Simons, Josh Hart can certainly be that secondary playmaker, shot creator, and with a bench unit that I've said numerous times I think will try and play at a fast pace, he can be that outlet guy and push the ball up the court and initiate things. While he's no Damian Lillard, I think you'll see Ant be able to play a little bit off the ball even in the bench lineup because of Josh Hart's playmaking ability, much like Anthony Simons would play off the ball with Damian Lillard next to him. It'll be interesting to see how creative Chauncey Billups gets with the playmakers that he has off the bench, as well as some unorthodox pieces such as a Gary Payton II and a Trendon Watford. I think you could come up with some really creative actions, and it'll be interesting to see how Josh Hart's playmaking could be utilized in those. But while the second unit's playmaking is impressive, the shot creation and scoring ability isn't as impressive. The Blazers are going to need Josh Hart to step up for stretches and carry a little bit of the scoring load, especially if Anthony Simons doesn't really have it get going. Assuming Gary Payton II and Justice Winslow play, those are good defensive pieces, but neither can really create their shot at a high level. So Josh Hart is going to need to create offense not only for other players, but also for himself. But he's been able to do that, averaged 15 points per game on the season last year, and as I said at the start of the video, 20 points per game in a Blazer uniform. So hopefully he can replicate some of that. Now let's look on the defensive end, where I like Josh Hart as a good on-ball defender that can also play team defense. He's not really stronger in one area or the other, in my opinion. He's just very, very solid. He's very strong. He competes hard on that end, can kind of set the tone from an intensity and an effort standpoint. And early last season, I said on stream that the Blazers needed a guy to set that tone, to be a leader by example in terms of the effort that you need to give on the defensive end. And we identified Josh Hart as one of those guys that could set the tone. Gary Payton II is another one of those guys that can set the tone. It's nice having two of those guys because last year the Blazers had zero. So while Josh Hart probably isn't the lockdown defender that Gary Payton II is, he's probably not going to lock up too many players. He can do a good job on them. He's a good on-ball defender. He's going to help the Blazers out on that end. He's even had times where he's guarded power forwards, and he's competed enough to not get absolutely abused in those situations, so you can make the case that he can guard 4 positions. I would like seeing him on perimeter players, though. I think he's a little better there. But with the Blazers going small ball once again this year, you could maybe even see Josh Hart guarding some power forwards. It just kind of depends on who that power forward might be. If teams go small, or if you have a Draymond Green type of player at the 4, I think Josh Hart can compete well enough against players like that to be serviceable. But in terms of his overall game, I just view Josh Hart as a good secondary playmaker, a good secondary scorer, and a good secondary defender with enough talent that he can step up and maybe take over the game a little bit on the offensive end for a stretch, guard the opposing team's best player for a stretch, and even run some point guard and be the main playmaker for a stretch. That's a really good role player to have. He can play on and off the ball, and I don't see there being a role that Hart would struggle in. That makes it really easy to mix and match lineups around him, and I think that's why he will probably play the most minutes off the bench next year. I don't expect him to start. I expect that to be Nasir Little, who will be the next player preview, but Josh Hart is so solid of a player that he might have a chance if Nas doesn't really break out. Now let's take a look at some statistical goals for Josh Hart. The first 3 are efficiency based. That's 60% from 2, 36% from 3, and 75% from the free throw line. Last year on the season in 54 games, he was 60% from 2, 34% from 3, and 76% from the free throw line. So the only goal that I have above his production last year is that 3-point percentage goal. But as I said, in a Blazer uniform, he shot 37% from 3, so 36% is certainly realistic. The final 4 goals are on a per 36-minute basis. That's for Hart to average 17 points per game. He averaged 16 points per game on a per 36-minute basis last year, but with the bench lineup playing a little bit faster, he should have some more opportunities to score. I want to see him get 4.5 assists per 36 minutes. That's exactly what he got last season. 7.5 rebounds, which is right in line with his career average of 7.6. He's a phenomenal rebounder. That's something I haven't mentioned. And if he's playing a shooting guard or even a small forward spot, he gives you positive value on the boards. And then 1.5 steals would be nice. This is maybe the most ambitious goal out of all of them. He averages 1.2 on his career, averaged 1.2 on the season, but got 1.4 assists per 36 minutes in Portland. So this goes in line with the theme that the bench unit should be trying to force more turnovers and playing an up-tempo offense out of that. It'll be interesting to see if the Blazers do indeed try and find that identity for their second unit, how bench players' steal numbers might look. Anyway, that wraps up this player preview on Josh Hart. Let me know what you think about Hart down in the comment section below. Do you think he should start at the small forward spot, and do you think the Blazers should bring Nasir Little off the bench, or vice versa? As I said, Nas's player preview is coming up after this one, and we're going to finish things up in the next 36 hours or so, so stay tuned. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss any player previews, and check out that playlist link as well. With that being said, I'm out of here. I'll catch you in the next one. Until then, as always, peace out. Go Blazers.